Okay, good morning and welcome to the latest debate with the buyer. Today we're turning our attention to the world of Cava and the world of Spanish still white and red wines as well, and traveling over to Spain to explore how Cava now sits within the sparkling wine category, and in particular the work that Raventos Codorniu are doing, and clearly being category leader. It's very important to have them alongside us this morning to be able to go through this session. To help us, we have a team from Codorniu and also from Raimat, the winery that works so closely with Codorniu, and a panel of UK buyers and restaurateurs. So just to introduce the buyers, if I can, we have Richard Bigg, who's the owner of Camino, the chain of Spanish restaurants. Morning, Richard. Nice to see you.
Hi, Richard. Good to be here.
Yeah, excellent. From the Wine Society, very, very pleased to have Pierre Monceau with us. Nice to see you as well, Pierre. Thanks for coming on.
Hello.
That's great. And I think joining us live and exclusive is Harry Crowther. I'll let you connect to your order, Harry. Will Hill, who's the main wine buyer at Humble Grape, the chain of, or small group, should I probably say, of wine bars. And do you still call yourself hybrid these days? I don't know. Are you officially?
Yeah, we still use the word hybrid, but yeah, wine bar, wine group, yeah, that kind of thing.
Excellent. Okay. And we have Charles Walton, who's owner of the Ellis Walton Wine. So nice to have you, Charles.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah. And he's here, but we can't currently see him. But Harry Crowther, sorry, who's the wine buyer for Good Pear Days, and as you can see there, also runs his grain to grape consultancy. So Harry, can you hear us? We can't see you, but can you hear us?
Yeah. Morning, Chief. Sorry about camera problems. Hi, everyone.
It's all right. Nice to see you, sir.
Hello.
All right. Is your camera not working, or are you going to?
I don't know it might be something to do with Zoom, the permissions. I just need to have a little. I might jump off and on and have to reset it, but I'm working on it.
Okay. All right. Well, great to have us with you anyway. I thought what we'll do actually is kick off. As I say, the main thrust of today is to look at Cava in the main. So perhaps actually, if I come to the buyers first, actually, and just to get your initial perceptions of where Cava sits within your Spanish category, but also within sparkling wine itself. Richard, can I come to you first? I mean, obviously, you're dealing with customers every day. Where does Cava sit with you in terms
of Richard? Yeah.
Yeah, it's you, Richard. Yes, that Richard. You, Richard. What's your in terms of where you see Cava? Obviously, you've been working in the Spanish restaurant scene for a number of years, and clearly Cava is a very central part of that. Where do you see Cava in terms of its journey?
Well, it's I've been a big fan for a long time, and I should say, before I forget, I have visited Codorniu at least, I think, 3 times actually, and very, very impressive place. And also not just a huge producer, but very innovative as well, and really pushing the quality boundaries. So I'm particularly impressed with such a huge producer. For us at Camino, Cava is pretty huge. Of course, it's the only sparkling we sell. We don't have champagne on purpose, because I think Cava can provide all the quality you could need, but whilst in the same method as champagne, I really like the fact that it has its own identity, this sort of Mediterranean style. And although, of course, it does have Chardonnay and Pinot Noir as well, I particularly like the indigenous grape varieties used there to give it its strong identity. Because it's a sparkling wine, it's the only one we sell a lot of it, but it is very, very popular. We have our house brut style and a rosé as well, and then we also have a Gramona further up as a Grand Reserva on offer. But you know, I think people get the fact that it's a lot of bangs for your buck, It's extraordinary value. I just do not understand how a great made in the traditional, a wine made in the traditional method can be so affordable. At the real high upper echelons, I know you can spend a lot of money. If you go for one of the sort of Celler, Batley, Gramonas or something like that, that's best part of 100 quid a bottle. But people really enjoy it. It's easy drinking, but there's more to it than that. There's some substance to it, and it matches food well. So it's a big deal for us. And the people also love it at their bottomless brunches as well, where they get through quite a bit.
And do you see Cava as being something that people are willing to drink all through their meal, or is it still very much sort of when they first sit down and as an aperitif, or how are people drinking it?
It tends to be more as an aperitif to kick off the evening with. Apart from the bottomless brunches, of course, who it's like it just keeps on coming all the way through. But the richer style we have, the Gramona Imperial, that does, that obviously can be drunk through the meal as well. Depends what you're having, of course. But
excellent. Okay, great. Pierre, can I come to you? I mean, obviously with the Wine Society, I mean, where would you say Cava sits within your overall sparkling wine category, and what for you are you looking for in a Cava?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much in the same camp as Richard in terms of my confidence support for quality from Cava. I think it's without doubt one of the best quality traditionally made sparkling wines that's outside of obviously champagne, and it has its own individuality in terms of the sort of local grapes that are used. I guess the difference between the Wine Society and Richard's perspective is that we sell wines from all over the world. We don't just specialize in Spain. In fact, I wouldn't even say we are a Spanish specialist. So we sell, our range is about 1,500 different wines, and currently 90 of those are sparkling wines. And that includes all sparkling wines across the world, including champagne. 2/3 of those sparkling wines come from France, and that's really a reflection of two things. One, our historical connection with France as a retailer, because we've been around since 1874. Our demographic of our customer is very much supports sort of the traditional French wines. So 2/3 from France. We list about 4 different Cavas throughout the year. Our key wine is a wine that we do under our Society label, which is our own label wine. If you look at the numbers, actually, so 4 Cavas out of 90 sparkling wines, and in 2020, that accounted for 28% of our sales in volume of sparkling wine. So we certainly have demand for Cava, but there's a but, and the but is there is definitely still, I think, a gap in perception between what I believe in terms of Cava and the quality that Cava offers, and actually what the British consumer perception of Cava is. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that as this debate goes on. If we were a Spanish specialist, we would work with many more Cavas. I think that the quality to price ratio is extremely good. I think that Cava itself has a branding image issue, which I think makes things quite difficult. But right across the board, tasting these Codorniu Cavas, one of the strongest and very successful Cava brands that's available on the high street. but even the competitors to Codorniu, you know, the quality of Cava it's just incredibly consistent, but not consistent in a simple, bland way. Actually, you can taste the difference between a house style. Yeah, I'm very enthusiastic. I wish we could sell more Cava. I think the help we need to sell more Cava is one around getting the image, embellishing the image in a way that enhances Cava, but without putting it out of the reach of most wine drinkers.
Yeah, excellent. And what would be your, in terms of the price points, and where does your price points range then within those four?
So between our society's Cava, I should know that off by heart, I think it's £8.95 a bottle. You know, it comes from a producer who own their own vineyards, manage their own vineyards, and make an excellent Cava for the price. It's a reserva level, and our most expensive Cava is about £23 a bottle.
Okay, excellent. All right, that's pretty interesting. That's quite a stretch. Will, I mean, you're from your point of view, in terms of the bars that you have, where does Cava sit for you, and what's your perception in terms of what you've heard from Richard and Pierre?
Well, I completely agree with Richard and Pierre's kind of assessment of Cava, of the absolute quality and value that you can find there, comparable with other traditional method wines. It's really hard to argue against the consistency of value that you can find there. But I was also going to mention the kind of image branding kind of issue, I suppose, because particularly with a lot of our more neighborhood sites, Cava, when you talk about it with people, it seems or comes across as a bit old-fashioned, maybe not as trendy as some other things on the market at the moment. So we're a lot more successful with pet nats and cremonts and different kind of styles. Once you start speaking about Cava, there's often almost a nostalgic, I remember that kind of thing amongst some of the younger crowds that we have. So I think there's work to do on that side of things, but then ultimately the proof's in the bottle. Once people taste it and see how much they're paying for it, there's not one complaint.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, we'll explore those perception issues as we go along. Charles, does that ring true with you in terms of where does Cava sit with yourselves?
Yeah, I think it does. We probably do. We've got 3 Cavas on the list at the moment. I've got 4 Proseccos. It's you know, we probably sell, I don't know, for every 6 bottles of Prosecco we sell a bottle of Cava, which I don't know whether that's good or bad in ratio terms, but I would rather sell someone a bottle of Cava than I would Prosecco most of the time. But the trouble is getting people to trade up to more premium Cavas. I think that's our biggest problem, and there are some amazing Cavas out there. It's just getting people to put them in the same price category as champagne, I guess, more than anything else. And certainly with some of the better, you know, the really good ones, there is definitely the quality there.
Would that ratio, say 5-10 years ago, would that Prosecco Cava ratio would have been the other way, say 10 years ago? Or?
We're definitely selling more Cava now than we ever have. Definitely, right. It's growing. It is growing, and it's sort of quality led. It's just getting people to trade up in price to do the more premium products. Okay. As I say, we can trade people up to Cremant, champagne, English sparkling wine. It's can you get them from £10 a bottle to 15 or 20? That's the really hard bit we struggle with, I think, at the minute.
Okay, great. Okay, well, let's explore that again. Harry, do you want to, I know with good pair days, is Cava a category which within? Well, actually, do you want to just quickly explain what Good Pair Days does for those who don't know, and then
sure. So yeah, Good Pair Days we launched in December of last year, and effectively it's a subscription-based algorithm, if you like. So our customers go onto the website, they do quite an in-depth palate quiz, but it's really friendly. You know, it's how much butter do you like on your toast, what's your favorite fruits and all that. And we build a very we built an extremely advanced algorithm on the back end, which effectively pairs wines to our customers' palates. So with respect to Cava, so effectively 90% of our sales come through our subscription model, which basically means 90% of our customers drink what we or the algorithm effectively recommend to them. And with that in mind, I've listed 5 Cavas between 12 and 17 quid. And across those 5, we sold 1,000 bottles of Cava since we launched in December. And the average, you know, we encourage our customers to rate wines on a sort of 5-point scale, and the average rating is around sort of 3.9 to 4. So I think the customers certainly like it. I suppose I could echo what everyone else has said with respect to the value proposition versus the price. Also, that kind of, I think Cava's been a little bit in no man's land for a while in terms of its price point, because many sparkling wine drinkers, you know, will either go straight for Prosecco, or maybe if they're feeling a bit more flush or it's more of a celebratory occasion, they'll just jump straight up to champagne. And again, I feel that Cava's maybe just been stuck a little bit in that no man's land price point in between. But certainly, we certainly don't struggle to sell it. And again, you know, our customers do enjoy the juice that we sell to them. I would also say, in terms of like a branding and an image side of things, you know, I know it's not Cava and it's possibly the antithesis of Cava, but you know, the whole Corpinat movement that's come about recently has, I think, actually inadvertently done some good for brand Cava. You know, and this movement away of certain producers to, you know, just a slightly different approach to producing their wines is actually, I think, you know, could help put the spotlight back on Cava a little bit. And I think that's I think it's really important to consider the Corpinat movement and what it may do and what it is doing for the Cava category as a whole, to be honest.
Okay, interesting. Well, can I just say, we're also joined, as I say, from the Codorniu team. So Richard Peruggi, who heads up the off trade, and we have Russ Maddox with us, who's head of the on trade, and Juan Estev, who's from the Raimat winery, but also used to be the head viticulturist for Codorniu. Can I ask whoever wants to take this one? But I mean, having heard the buyer's views there, where does that sit within what you're hearing and your own perceptions of where the Cava category sits at the moment? Perhaps if I come to you, Richard, first for that one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, go.
I'll go on, Juan.
Go on.
No, I just I wanted to apologize my English, because especially my British English is difficult to understand. So if you can ask me anything more concise and clear, it would help a lot for me. Just that comment.
Okay, that's fair enough. Don't worry, I will do.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, it's fascinating to hear that. It's nothing I was not expecting to hear, to be fair. I often put my consumer hat on when having conversations like this. And as a consumer, I'm kind of the same, that Cava was pretty big, with a couple of big brands leading the way, probably when I was back in my student days in the 90s. And there was big sales of Cava within the UK market. Obviously, the big marketing machine that was Prosecco came along in the 21st century. I think the nicest thing about Prosecco, even though I work for a Cava supplier, is it's actually put sparkling wine back on the map, particularly in the UK market. So actually sparkling wines are growing significantly. Cava itself has seen great global growth. I mean, we've seen growth in the last year across all Cavas from Spain of about 17% globally, which is fantastic. That's not to say that other sparkling wines from other markets, such as the Crémants and the Blanquettes from France, aren't growing at a similarly great rate. And we've obviously got fantastic period of growth for English sparkling wines, which are obviously very high quality. Speaking specifically about Cava, I think the biggest challenge is the one that was highlighted there, which is to uptrade customers away from this I actually think the no man's land that Cava's been in over the last probably at least decade has been the fact that it's actually undervalued and underpriced. So you have a lot of volume of Cava going out at the same or similar price point to the entry-level Proseccos in that sort of £6 to £10 bracket, and it's actually doing a disservice to the quality and the workmanship that goes into a traditional method sparkling wine from a great region over in Catalonia. So on that basis, I think some of the buyers here actually mentioned that £10 to £20 price point is probably the key going forward, certainly on the retail side, for driving the Cava image forward. And I think that's part of what our marketing team are trying to look at as well, is not only up trading customers to our mid-tier, which you'll see today in the sort of Raventos Codorniu level, but also actually bringing, as many have said, younger consumers into drinking Cava. I think Prosecco's a very affordable and very accessible style of sparkling wine that gets a lot of new consumers into both wine and sparkling wine. But Cava has a great opportunity to really emphasize its quality level. And I can't remember if who said that the actual nuances of the indigenous grape types. I think it was you, Richard, that mentioned that actually adds a USP that some of the other grape types. Yes, we do use Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, as you said, but actually the fact that we have Xarel·lo, Parellada, Macabeo, there's a lovely story behind it, and people do buy into that. So yeah, I think that there's a lot to be done. We feel like we're at the start of that journey, but obviously as one of the big two players within Cava, we feel that we have obviously the marketing power and size to be able to hopefully do that and take Cava on a journey so that we're not losing headway to Prosecco or any other method of sparkling wine out there.
Excellent. Okay. Well, and Russ, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, and I suppose for me, guys, it's all about education. You know, for me, it's so frustrating sort of being the sort of head of sort of, you know, sales and sort of, you know, the marketing side of obviously the on-trade. You go into an on-trade outlet, you go into an on-trade specialist, and we all know and sort of resonate the sort of, you know, the statistics of the sparkling wine category, and it drives you absolutely balmy that on their particular wine menu, on their particular offering, they have 3 sparklings on. They'll have an entry-level Prosecco or a sort of cheap sparkling, and then they'll go straight into a house champagne or straight trade up to a sort of, you know, a premium champagne. So the price bracket, they're going from sort of, you know, 20 quid or 25 quid straight up to 30 quid, straight up to 60 quid. There's no tierage in between, whereas you would on a house wine, you would on, you know, a plethora of obviously, you know, 10 whites and 10 reds. There's always a tier, a £1.50 tier or a £2.50 tier or even a £3 tier. But frustratingly, in a sparkling category, you know, you're going from sort of 22, 25 straight up to 35, straight up to 40, where there's nothing in between. And we have so many SKUs. And I think the biggest thing for me is education. You know, you put in a blind tasting, I can educate, you know, the consumer behind the bar and the consumer, you know, the restaurateur or the sommelier, you know, quite easily on a tasting and a profile between an entry-level Prosecco or an entry-level sort of, you know, French sparkling, and put a Cava next to it. 9 times out of 10, you know, with the sort of, you know, all our sort of pillars and our experience, and obviously the 3 grape varietals, the price point, 9 times out of 10, you know, blind tasting, we win hands down. But you try educating a busy bar on a Saturday night sort of thing, when the first thing they ask for is a sparkling wine, the first thing they ask for is Prosecco. So it is frustrating, but as Richard sort of echoed, you know, for me sort of thing, you know, no pun intended, but my bum doesn't sort of touch the floor. I'm all over the UK with people sort of crying out for Cava now, you know, and obviously, you know, we've got so much growth, anticipation and sort of expectation out there. It is massive. So it could be even more massive with obviously re-education and, as someone alluded to earlier, getting rid of that sort of 80s, 90 kind of stuffy Cava image.
Yeah, any thoughts from the buyers there in terms of that, particularly around the pricing ladder of Cava and sparkling? Any thoughts in terms of whether that's an issue or how that can be helped? No, anybody?
I think the only other thing I was just going to quickly say, Richard, as well, just in terms of the price point, I think that uptrade of customer isn't necessarily as difficult as we think sometimes. If you actually look at the price points of where English sparkling sits, it's very hard to find one that sits generally under £20 at retail. If you look at where Cremonts and Blanquette sit, they tend to sit around £12–13. So there's already that trade up above the magic £10 mark. I think it's just getting, as some of the buyers said, the image of Cava right, so that we can actually easily justify that shift from the £7 to £9 bracket to a £12 to £14 bracket, where you suddenly actually get a even better price to quality ratio. It's already good at entry level Cava, but the kind of customer we would love to have is the one that's drinking in that £12 to £20 bracket, because they're the ones that will return and want to try the different styles within that bracket, of which, you know, we're trying to hit here today, the Ana Rosé and the Ars Collector Blanc de Blanc as well.
Okay. Juan, can I ask you, in Spain, does Cava have a similar issue in terms of its pricing?
You mean this perception that is not as good understood as we feel?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. I mean, we have the feeling that, well, we have done big efforts to improve year after year, because you have to consider that in Codorniu, especially, we take care of our own vineyards. For example, half of the Codorniu Cava, it comes from own vineyards, so it's a state bottle, most of it, and the other half, it comes from growers that we have a long-term agreement, some of them after generations, that brings their fruit to our winery in Sant Sadurní. And we control all the process, since the origin of the fruit, the fermentation, the first fermentation, the wine, the base wine, and everything. And even we can talk, after all, about many sustainable actions that we are working the last years. And all that, we have the feeling that has not been good communicated to the final consumer, no? Because there is a big work after behind all that, no? And as you all said, that there is the quality we feel that is quite good, especially when we do blind tastings with compared to many other sparklings. But on the other hand, the Cava name probably has not the good positioning in the market, because, of course, like any other categories, there are many Cavas that they work in many different ways, and probably some of them are sold too cheap, and then this creates a perception that is not as good product as others, no? Because there are many offers in the market that tells you that the cheaper is, the less good is, no? And probably that has damaged the image of the Cava name, no? Because there were too many cheap Cavas in the market. But this is my perception from Spain. I don't know if it's what is real there, no?
So, I mean, coming back to the buyers, I mean, in terms of where Cava sits at the highest level, where are you seeing, what's the sort of the highest level for Cava, do you think, that you can justify in your own businesses? What is the kind of the top price threshold? Pierre, would you imagine? I know you mentioned earlier you go to, was it 24, 25? Is that, I mean, is that kind of where the limit is, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're you know, we do things quite simply here, which is we do look at quality first and foremost. So, you know, and as a buyer, my job is to then reflect exactly what my customers are expecting, you know, and what their taste is. So we'll line up sparkling wines from all over the world, and I guess we don't really put a price threshold, but you know, where you've got Cavas at over £20 and they're starting to come into the sort of champagne category, if they offer something different but at the same sort of level of finesse and elegance, which I think they do, you know, theoretically we'd list them. I think the problem is that purchasing of sparkling wines has a certain snobism around it. It's so much of it is to do with status in terms of what I buy and or what I buy as a gift. So, you know, to give someone a gift of a sparkling wine that's over £20, you're going to look like a better donor of a gift if it's got champagne on it. And I think that's what Cava could aspire to. I think English sparkling wine is starting to achieve that, obviously helped by the fact that it's English, and therefore, you know, our consumers are more likely to have a slant to England anyway. You know, but I guess I'm assuming my fellow buyers on the call will be feeling the same about what I'm going to say. I think there is this sort of tension between not wanting to lose that value for money message that Cava does so bloody well in terms of price versus quality ratio, and getting too luxurious. I think that would also be a mistake, actually. I think Cava has an opportunity to cut through that snobism, and I think that's the sort of that's what the brand marketers are going to have to navigate through with Cava. And I think the way to do that is to tell the story about what makes Cava different to other sparkling wines, local grapes, different types of climate and soils, and so on.
Yeah, and Richard, do you think that, you know, Richard Biggs, do you think you personally, but the Spanish restaurant scene has a kind of an important role to play, because obviously you're working with Cava as your main sparkling to be able to try, and you mentioned earlier how you're using sort of the more premium Cavas. Is that something that you think there's more scope there? If there's more premium Cavas in the market, that you're open to listing them? Yeah. Well,
there's the food and the wine go together, of course. So there's a lot of actually very, very good, high quality tapas bars and restaurants, not just in London, but around the UK now, which is great. So of course, the quality food needs quality wine to match. And if everybody just sticks to, I think most do, just stick to great Cava, then that message of the quality is going to be reinforced, which is ideal, really. And I think there's going to be more and more traction here as people realize they go to these like fine-looking tapas places, like, you know, not just Camino, but Iberica, Barafina, Copito, and all the rest, and that they're going to be drinking Cava, and they can appreciate it. So it's definitely a growth area. So I think that's obviously going to be good for the image. I can't help thinking, and I know that the historical problems that there is about the image, that there are about the image, like you know, supermarkets selling them too cheap or for 2 for 1, horrible, really, shooting Cava in the foot in that respect. I don't think there's quite so many deals like that anymore, which is a good thing, and it's great to see single vintage Cavas on shelves for sort of 10, 12, 15 pounds in supermarkets now. So that has also got to help, and they wouldn't sell them, they wouldn't have them on shelf if they weren't selling. So there's obviously something good must be happening, therefore. I think on the image side, I can't help thinking that if I was involved in marketing Cava as a category, I would get some celebrities involved. So, you know, what about Rafa Nadal, Penelope Cruz, people like that? Get them drinking it, and people are like, wow, great. You know, Fernando Alonso when he's not driving, and so on. So I think there's a lot of fun that could be had to reinforce the image. Exactly. They can't just rely on Richard Big, can they? No. I'm enthusiastic, but I can't do it on my own. No, exactly. Charles, I mean, can I ask you, when you mentioned there in terms of the Cavas that you're selling, where would you see the kind of the upper ceiling for Cava, or where the aspiration can go to?
We sort of have two hats, really, because we retail and we wholesale. Retail wise, we can sell, £20-25 is probably not a problem in the shop of any other categories of sparkling wine. I would say English Cornish sparkling wines seem to be £30 plus these days. We don't seem to have a problem selling those. I think probably the biggest issue is that generic request for sparkling wine when they say, can we have a bottle of Prosecco? That seems to be the generic call for sparkling wine, and I think that's possibly out in the trade. The perception has got to change there and go, actually, what are you asking for when you say, do you want Prosecco? Do you want Prosecco, or do you want actually a nice sparkling wine? I'm not sure Prosecco's necessarily got the quality image, whereas actually Cava and one or two other categories have.
Yeah,
I think that's the difficulty out in the trade.
Yeah, ironically, if we're having a debate now, as I have done in the past with Prosecco, they have the other alternative that they too also want to premiumize. So it's kind of affecting both sides of the camp. Will, from your point of view, you mentioned earlier, if there were more like kind of pet natural type styles, that might help. But where would you put the sort of ceiling for Cava and what it should be aiming at?
Well, with the retail side of things, we have any sparkling, I'll just make some numbers, 20, 25 to 30 pounds kind of thing. We wouldn't have a problem moving anything like that with Cava. It'd be almost an easy way to sell to people, because it's at that kind of sweet price point where you can recommend a lot of things as an upgrade or a cheaper option. It works fantastically. But product placement with them, just looking at some of the bottles that you've sent us, and when I think about the other ones on people's shelves, they often look quite premium. Just the branding image of a lot of Cavas, I think, just tend to look a little more premium than Proseccos. So I think there's often a perception when you see something like that for such a good price, it might make a consumer think, well, hang on, why are they able to sell that so cheap? It's not quite reflective. So then they move to something a little more comfortable.
Productive, yeah.
Yeah.
And Harry, what was your thoughts in terms of where you think you can push Cava?
I suppose firstly from the retail side, I think unlike a few of my peers earlier, I think would struggle to sell above the £20 price point. But I think that's maybe just where our business is in terms of its maturity, and that's why we've sold good volume at that sort of £12 to £17 price point. But from sort of jumping across to an on-trade perspective, I think it's a lot easier to pull customers through the price bands with Cava than it is, say, with Prosecco, and purely because of the way it's been made, and that's a very easy sell, for a som or for any waiter or waitress on the floor is to really just that familiarity with originality against champagne, and when it's made in the same way, often sometimes with the same varieties, that but you can get something that's half the price of a bottle of champagne. I think that's a good sort of communication piece, I think, and I'm not saying that Cava needs to be marketed as the Spanish version of champagne. I'm just saying that champagne is synonymous with premium price points, and it's the same method that's being used, and I think it's a lot easier to communicate that for Cava than it would be for Prosecco, because Prosecco at the end of the day is a very different method of production, and that's, I think, where certainly Prosecco would struggle to premiumize. And I know there are coal fondos and whatnot, but that's just an even harder job in terms of communication with.
It is. Yeah. Okay, well, we did a lot of talking, but not a lot of tasting. So we got all these bottles lurking. Do the Codorniu guys want to take us through? I guess we can actually perhaps take some of these reasonably quickly in terms of like showing the different styles. Richard, Russ, how do you want to play it in terms of which approach do you want to take in terms of which Cava to try?
Yeah, don't mind. I know obviously some of the buyers have tried some of these already anyway, early this morning. I mean, it's more about telling the story of obviously the reason we chose these 4 were actually just to give an introduction to some different levels, but actually they're very close levels. I think one of the nicest things about the Cava category is the fact that you can trade up, as Russ was saying earlier, without a big jump. The beauty of it from, you know, a wholesale price perspective, you're literally talking jumps up of, you know, a very limited amount, even at retail, in terms of if you're a retail specialist, for example, you're talking jumps up of maybe £3-4 at most between each step. So you've got an entry level Cava. We've also got our Ecologica here, which is our organic Cava. In fact, not only are we the world's largest producer of organic Cava, we do 35% of the organic Cava in the world already, which is just under 5 million bottles. So there is a lot of organic Cava coming out of Codorniu already. But actually all of our production of certainly Cava coming into the UK market at some point next year in 2023 will be organic. So we are transitioning both private label and branded Codorniu Cava products in the UK market over to organic. So that was just to show a nuance of the differences. They're both the 3 core indigenous grape types, so the first 2. So you've got the Ecologica and just our standard brut non-vintage Cava.
Okay, so so we're starting with the brew, yeah?
Yeah.
And I think, as Richard sort of resonated, the biggest thing you'll find, guys, is, you know, for the sake of, you know, that extra £2 or £3, when you jump up from non-vintage, when we go into the Anna, Brut, Rosado Cava, and then trade up again to the Ars Collector, it's just amazing, that extra couple of quid you're paying that difference. Richard, am I right in thinking that the Ars Collector, is this the Grand Reserva or the Reserva?
No, this is the Reserva. So we've actually this is another nuance, and it's interesting actually. I know obviously one of our esteemed competitors likes using very distinguished bottles, shall we say. We love our Ars Collector bottle. It adds another USP to that customer experience. But we're actually transitioning. It's the same aging as it's always been, because of some of the new laws coming into the Consejo de Cava. We're actually shifting it from a Gran Reserva to a Reserva, just on the basis of the aging. For us, this is our key target market going forward, particularly in the likes of specialist retailers and some of the more premium, larger retailers like the Waitroses of this world. Ars Collector for us is a big push from a marketing perspective, and part of that is around the image that the buyers have been discussing, is that Cava has had this no man's land image for some time, and that's what we're trying to move away from. So yes, it needs a big marketing push, a big PR push. I think it's interesting that at the moment, to me, a lot of the value of Cava is driven at the entry level, which is a disservice to all Cava producers, because there are such fantastic products out there. So the education piece that Russ mentioned is similar to the way that if you're a Prosecco producer, you might also produce Franciacorta, and clearly Franciacorta is also a traditional method. And that's the interesting debate for us, is to say, well, to the consumer, you don't have to trade up from an entry-level Cava to get traditional method, because it's already being made in that manufacturing process that's similar to champagne. It is the Spanish champagne. Whereas for Prosecco, there isn't necessarily a logical trade-up. You do, yes, there is a Prosecco Superiore, there is Valdobbiadene and Conegliano, but actually, technically, the next step up would be a Franciacorta. So for us, perhaps for the consumer, the trade-up is also an easier navigation than it would be on Prosecco.
Yeah, and are you getting an indication? I mean, I don't, you know, I know it's very difficult, these conversations, when it comes to price in supermarkets, because obviously we always end up whacking the supermarkets over the head. But I mean, it clearly takes 2 to tango in terms of pricing, and where the amount of Cava that's in the market at certain price points, in the same way there's a lot of Prosecco at certain price points. I mean, is there a sort of a feeling in terms of what the supermarkets are looking for, in terms of, are they happy to give up more listings for slightly more premium Cavas that can raise the whole ship, as it were? Or is there always that kind of the ship going back down again? And it's like, if we can get away with £1 less, then let's do that, rather than trying to get £1 up.
from the mainstream supermarkets, I guess it's a hard debate. Most of my career, I've actually been a buyer myself. So from a buyer perspective, the reality is, even if you're not making much margin off private label Cava, for example, the reality is it's shifting millions of bottles every year. So it serves a cash cow purpose for those retailers and within the sparkling wine category. I think one of the most interesting statistics I heard today is obviously things like, 1 bottle of Cava being sold for every 6 bottles of Prosecco. I also heard that actually, I think it was Pierre at the Wine Society who said, 28% of their volume on sparkling wine comes from Cava, but I have no doubt that that's driven by their Wine Society Cava. At that entry-level price point. Now, £8.95, I think he mentioned, is a great price point to be selling Cava at. It puts it at the same level as something like let's say, a Taste the Difference Sainsbury's Cava. But at the same token, as I mentioned, that £12 to £20, or frankly anything over £10 mark for us in retail is the holy grail. And I think that's where everyone would agree. That's that you get people over that £9.99 mark. It's where you can really add value to a category, but that also adds to the image of a wine in itself. So we really want Cava to be positioned going forward at a similar level to the Cremants and Blanquettes of this world.
Okay. Can I ask the buyers? I mean, I guess you can taste through these Cavas as we're chatting. I mean, of the styles that are here, we've got four different styles. Which are the ones for you that have the most appeal to you the most, or have the most interest?
Because an entry-level brand, the Ecologica is great because that's where we're moving towards. The majority of our portfolio is going to organic Cava, but that is just a traditional 3 indigenous Spanish grape types. Going forward, I mean, as I said, that £12, £13 price point is key for us. So that comes into its own with Anna. So we already sell our brut version of the Anna in Waitrose, for example, around that 12.
Anna's the rosé.
So this is a rosé version, just to give you a bit of difference. So this is a blend of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. It's quite a classical combination, shall we say? So it's not the indigenous local grapes. It's 70% Pinot Noir, 30% Chardonnay. But again, I think it's our Anna level is nice because it's where we start introducing some of the international grape types into our wines to demonstrate that, do you know what? Spanish winemakers can actually make a great sparkling wine using the same grape types as the French do over in Champagne or many of their other sparkling wine regions.
I've just got a question for the Codorniu guys and the winemaking team on the premium fizz, the Blanc de Blanc. What's the? I mean, most Cava is Blanc de Blancs, and I'm just wondering what the marketing if it was a marketing decision to label that wine a Blanc de Blanc and to distinguish it from the rest, because I know Pinot Noir can be used, but traditionally it's the 3 core Cava varietals are white anyway. So just a question around that, really.
I don't know if you want to answer this, Joanne, or if you know why we're calling them Blanc de Noir and Blanc de Blanc.
Well, I don't know exactly why we use it that name. What can I talk is more or less the origin of the varieties we use there, but I guess that is a marketing issue. I'm not sure.
I don't actually think it's an issue. I think it's a positive thing, and interestingly enough, my
what do you think of the? What do you think of that wine, Harry?
Yes. Sorry, Chief.
What do you think of that wine? The Ars Collector.
I thought it was delicious. And interestingly enough, talking about that education piece, that familiarity with originality. I've had my parents over this weekend who actually live in Spain, and he saw the Blanc de Blanc bottle, and the first thing he said was, it reminds him of the Ruinart Blanc de Blanc, and actually that goes straight to that kind of premiumization piece, which I think is important. Yeah, I was just interested to better understand the rationale behind why it was called a Blanc de Blanc.
Yeah, that's really interesting feedback. Yeah. Any
other thoughts from the buyers in terms of the styles, perhaps the rosé or the arts collector, in terms of what you think that's doing?
I think the standard quality across all four of the carvers is very good. And actually, what's also really encouraging is that each style is reflecting exactly what it's telling the consumer on the bottle. And through that branding, I think it works very, very well. So yeah, I mean, I was I rated the wines. Interestingly, with the Ars Collector wine, I did just show it around the office beforehand, and it's actually the majority of the guys here. I didn't show them the label. They thought it looked like Prosecco to them. Just saying, that was just sort of limited feedback. I think this wine is extremely good. It's a delicious wine. I think the question about Blanc de Blanc is also a good question that Harry just raised. The Anna Rosé, why have you called it rosé? Why don't you call it rosado or use a Spanish word or Catalan word? Be proud of your heritage. That was I thought that was quite interesting. So that's my feedback. Great wines, well done.
Any other thoughts, Richard? What's your feeling?
Yeah, I'm also impressed with the quality across the range. I really like the Ecologica actually. I thought that was a perfect aperitif. I found it very crisp and lemony and just delicious. Great way to kick off any occasion. And then across the range, very good indeed. I agree with Pierre actually on this point about why use. I mean, we're not between us. Well, none of us are quite sure why Blanc de Blanc was used. Why use French? Is it necessary? Maybe it's a marketing tool that will help sell more of it or appeal to a different market. I'm not sure, but as sorry, I can't remember the name from the guy whose face we can't see, but he did raise that question. I can't, but I thought the wine was exceptional. This was just superb, really delicious, brilliant structure, very rich and very rewarding. No doubt quite a heavy amount of Charello in there, I would imagine, to achieve that along with the Chardonnay. One little point on this, I can't help, I've seen this word used in Navarra for the first time, a long time ago, but arse. It's not. There's a. I know it wouldn't be the first word I would choose to put on a bottle of wine. I know it's got a very different meaning in Spain, but in the UK,
perhaps a different pronunciation. I think we could use.
Well, it wouldn't be the word I would choose to market a bottle of fine wine. But anyway, just a quick thought there. We're not going to call it. You don't call it culo in Spanish, do you?
Well, I think that here there is a mix of Catalan, Spanish, and English names, no? Because Blanc de Blancs is also Catalan words, no? So in Catalan we say it in the same way, or even other names like Ars Collector could be also a mix of Catalan names and international names, no? So, but I guess that we should ask marketing people why they choose to do it in this way, no? Even the rosado, rosé, or rosat in Catalan, no?
Yeah, rosat, yeah, why not rosat? Yeah, to give that Catalan differentiation. But anyway, just a thought. Whichever country you're trying to sell it in, just see how that word works in their language. Just a thought.
Yeah. But other than the names, what I can tell you that the project of Ars Collector started more than 10 years ago, because at that time I was involved in selecting the vineyards and the fruit. And this has taken a very, very long process and a lot of efforts, because we used to select the best Pinot Noir from the vineyards in Poblet, which is a region close to to the Prades Mountains. It's just the other side of Priorato, where we selected the Pinot Noir. The Chardonnay comes from Raimat, where we have our continental its continental climate, and the expression of the Chardonnay is usually much acidic than when you get closer to the Mediterranean. And then the best Xarelos we found in the Penedès. So it was a project that took a lot of time selecting the fruit, managing the fruit. Everything was picked by hand and pressed maximum of 50% extraction. And when we got the wine, we started the process of the bottling and the aging. So I remember this project. At the beginning, there were many doubts because many people questioned the bottle style and everything. And it was a long project that now is just releasing in the market now. And in Spain, it's very successful right now.
Excellent. Okay. Can I just ask the other buyers what they thought of the range of the Cavas? Charles, any highlights for you from the range there?
Again, across the board, quality is most definitely there. Particularly, I say the Organica or Ecologica, I thought was very good, and the Ars Collector were my two sort of stars of the four.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I'm not sure is what the price points are exactly. That would be the only bit I'm unaware of at the moment without having looked into it too much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, perhaps we just pick up and Will, and then ask the Codorniu people to give us the prices on them. Will, what your thoughts?
To me, the Ecologica, the organic one, is definitely my star of that. It's so clean, fresh, and it took the word right out of my mouth before. I think this was Richard Big, a perfect aperitif style. Just exactly how I would have that on the list. But that to me is my star of the show.
And Harry?
Yeah, I think the organic's where it's at for me, and the block to block. But the organic, I think, again, looking at consumer buying patterns, etc. It's easier to sell organic. It's more of an emotional trigger to have that green credential, and at the end of the day, the British consumer tends to spend about 20% more on an organic product than something that's not. So I think stylistically it's where it's at for me, but actually I think commercially it's probably where it's at for the team as well.
Excellent. Richard, Russ, can you just give us the prices on those in terms of what the full Cavas there?
Rich, are you on your retail price list, or are you on your DPD price list?
I'd say, well, start off with DPD because retail, yeah. I deal with big supermarkets.
So the non-vintage is sort of sub £6, so it's sort of £5.80. So yeah, I'm sort of going out to sort of my wholesalers and sort of on trade accounts at sort of sub £6. And this is just with a sort of recent price increase. You guys, you can imagine, everybody, all incumbent suppliers have had a recent price increase with obviously, the logistic costs, fuel, bottling, raw materials. So we were, we've only just literally implemented ours as of the 1st of May, ours go live sort of thing, where I know a lot of wholesalers and a lot of competitors and wineries have actually, probably enforced theirs a good sort of, 8-12 weeks ago. So the organic, that range is out at the ecological is £7.28. The Anna de Codorniu Rosado is again £7.28. So you can see, a great trade up, less than sort of £1.50, £1.70 between obviously non-vintage Codorniu to the Rosado and the Blanc de Blanc. And then the Ars Collector is £11. Yeah, £11 dead.
Right, excellent. Okay. Well, before we move on to the still wines, clearly the organic wine there was the one that seemed to strike a mark, and clearly the organic side of things is something which has become a key focus. Do you want to just perhaps spend a little bit of time looking at what Codorniu is doing around organics and where that is actually taking the winery, and where is that the sort of the approach going forward in terms of where we are? Is that one for Juan or?
Yeah, did you want to take this, Joan, just to give a bit more explanation around the sustainability and the move to organic?
Yeah, well, this has been a process since the last even 20 or more years, because even now it's certified organic. We have been producing organic fruit since the last 15 years at least. Because first of all, just to understand where we are and why we are in this process, Raimat is a huge vineyard. It's a huge property. It's around 3,000 hectares. And this is a project that started Manuel Raventos in 1914, buying a piece of a desert and transforming it to what nowadays is Raimat, with more than 2,000 hectares of vineyards. No? Part of that, around the half of that fruit, it's usually Chardonnay and Pinot Noir that goes for cava production, or most of the Chardonnay and Pinot Noir is used in the Codorniu brand. And the reason of that is because this is we are in a place where it's quite famous for the fruit quality production, apples, pears, peaches, cherries, big fruit production area. And when Manuel Raventos bought this farm, was thinking on the fruit that was already produced here. And he found that the expression of the fruit here is much more intense because of this continentality than when you are in the Mediterranean Sea or when you are close to a place where the weather is mild. No? So these varieties has adapted very well here. And that's the reason that from the beginning, Codorniu has provided its own fruit from this farm. No? Managing such a big farm, which is almost a piece of a territory, creates you an additional responsibility, not only environmental, but also social, because he had to create a village in the property to bring people to work in this huge project. No? And in addition, we have a lot of social activities related to the community. But also in the farm, we have tried to manage it, not only managing some vineyard blocks, but also managing that piece of territory. And that's why the hunting is prohibited in the whole farm. There is plenty of wildlife. You can find more than 35 different birds flying around in the farm. As here you can see a picture on how this has been transformed in the last years, all this farm. And because of that, the sustainable responsibility has been quite sensitive for us since the beginning of this project. No? And that's why we are in this, we are more focused on sustainability than organic, but we consider organic just a piece of that, no? Because, I don't know, I could put you an example that we transform the water channel that brings our melted snow water to our farm from an open channel to a pipe. And that was an investment of more than 4 million euros, that now we don't need electricity to pump for irrigation. Now it's natural pressure coming from the water, no? And this, the payback of this is more than 50 years. So it's for the next generation. And it's a good example of what is sustainable versus on something that there is nothing to do with organic production. No? That organic production is just not using any inorganic product, either for pest control or for fertilization. No? So we have been in this process since ever, and this is an improving process because every year we are introducing new activities towards the sustainability, and organic is just a piece of that. No? So that's why we started producing. We don't use insecticides since 2000, so more than 20 years without using insecticides. Not only for our Raimat wines, but also for the Codorniu brands that use Raimat grapes, no? And for example, the mating disruption, which is an organic technique to control pests, has been introduced first in Raimat, and then it has been expanded to the rest of the Penedès, to our growers, and nowadays there is more than 6,000 hectares that they already use to control these insect pests. No? So many activities that we are continually running towards research and innovation to improve our sustainability, but organic is just a very nice name that the consumers understand. But what is really the future for next generations is to be more sustainable and use less inputs and less energy and reduce our carbon footprint. That this is what is really sustainable for the future.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And can I ask the buyers in terms of, and I know sustainability is clearly a massive issue for producers and rightly so, but in terms of cut through for customers and what you're looking to buy, I mean, how high up on the buying criteria is organics and sustainability over all the other factors? I mean, Pierre, can I ask you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's put it, you know, I would say that we've just signed off our sustainability strategy. So we're just starting to take action or putting that strategy into an action plan. So we're at early days with taking action, but we've got quite an ambitious program ahead of us. So we appointed at the end of last year a director of sustainability to help us on this journey. I guess, you know, for us, the phrase we're using now in terms of buying criteria, it's not just quality and price, but we see it as quality, price, and responsibility. So sustainability is going to become one of a set of criteria for us. But we also recognize that the wine industry, you know, operates globally, and there are different sectors, whether it's small producers, medium or large, that are in at different stages of their sustainability journey. So we recognize that this is going to take some time, and we recognize that we're going to have to support and work with the growers that need more of our support, and connecting our suppliers who are more advanced in sustainability with those who are less advanced, so that we can almost act as a middleman of collaboration. There was something else I was going to say about sustainability. Yeah, I think it's quite interesting that the thing we are avoiding, though, actually is organic as a necessarily a criteria that indicates sustainability, because I think organic is just one part of the story. Right. Actually sustainability is of course about environmental impact and the impact on the vineyards and so on, but there's also for us a big strand in social sustainability, and in terms of impact on people, impact on the people we work with, impact on the people we sell to, impact on the people that we buy from. So we're quite keen to disassociate sustainability from organic, or I should say we're not going to proactively do that, but we don't see organic as a way to reaching sustainability, because actually you can be sustainable without necessarily being organic in the vineyard, and you can be organic in the vineyard without necessarily choosing to certify to be organic in the vineyard. So to answer your question, yes, responsibility stroke sustainability we see over the next few years growing in importance when it comes down to our criteria for choosing who we work with. We will be rolling out some new standards around ethical standards for our, and sort of code of conduct standards for our suppliers, in terms of, you know, the sort of bare minimums of how we will expect our suppliers to behave both environmentally and socially.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, well, I mean, obviously, a lot of the Scandinavian monopolies are already, quite a long way down the route, aren't they? In setting the agenda on this. I mean, can I ask some of the buyers? I mean, Richard. I mean, Richard Bigg, do you, when you're looking at listings, is that something which is more front of mind now for you?
Yes, it is. Actually, recently I have contacted all our suppliers, not just wine suppliers, but across the board, and just asked them very simply to tell us about their sustainability credentials. So they've all sent me some stuff back, and I'm impressed. I'm happy to say it's great that everyone is on this. I think they feel the need to. I think it's going to help them and obviously help the planet. That's really why we're doing it. But it's also a marketing thing, and so we don't want to bore everybody senseless with being so worthy, but it's good to know. So I'm going to finish gathering all the information, and then decide how we portray that to our customers. It's a nice thing to know. It's also good for our staff to know, because they're younger than us by a long way, and this is obviously particularly important for them. They want to work for a company that takes these sort of things very seriously, and quite right too. They should, and our customer base. So we'll have, without ramming it down people's throats, we'll set up links on our website, that will summarize it about the sustainability angles, and then just say, click here if you want to know more. But I think it's a growth area, and we want to be a part of it too, and I think that's a very good thing.
Brilliant. Okay, Harry, I know Good Pair Days, your demographic is, if I understand, more at the younger end of the market. Is that a key thing for you when you're looking at listings?
Yeah, massively. We have an initiative called No Planet, No Pinot, which is we donate a percentage of profits to winemakers and vineyards, whatever, who have been affected adversely by climate change. So from an internal policy, that's what we do. But I think, I mean, when I've written bits and bobs for you, Chief, that I've always beat the drum about sustainability, and I think a lot of what Pierre said earlier really resonates, not only just with me, but actually with consumers. And interestingly enough, I can't get too granular on it because it hasn't been published yet, but I've just done a white paper with Cam Media, and we're looking at those sort of triggers, and actually sustainability comes in higher than organic in terms of for consumers, in terms of what they're actually looking for on a wine list. And I just wrote I just redid a wine list for a wine group recently, and actually we got strategic with it. And someone did say earlier that you can use sustainable messaging to benefit, it can be a marketing tool. And we actually removed tasting notes, and instead underneath the wine we actually put the sustainable credentials of these wineries, and we actually saw a little bit of growth in those average spends. So I think it's really really good to consider that. And it's interesting, the pandemic has sort of pricked the conscience of the UK consumer. Pre-COVID, it was, I think, around 7 to 10% was what people were looking for, the amount of customers that were looking for sustainable wines, and now it's closer to 50, and it doesn't have anything to do with the green leaf on the label. It's everything to do with those philanthropical projects, really.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Great, thanks, Harry. Charles, can I ask you? Same.
Yeah, no hard and fast rule on it's got to be organic. I guess we're fairly similar to Pierre and everyone else, that firstly, the wine's got to be good. If it's organic, if it's got some serious sustainability credentials, then that definitely gets it up the list of whether it's going to get on our list or not. There are so many of the wines we've got on board now that are organic but not certified. They're doing, you talk to them, you see what they're doing in the vineyards, in the winery, They're definitely working on the sustainable route rather than just sort of greenwashing themselves. They're actually doing something very proactive about what they're doing. And more of our list is going that way. And I'd say a good half, if not three-quarters, is towards three-quarters is seriously sustainable now, one way or another. As I say, I think the sustainability, having a sustainability qualification is the important bit rather than necessarily organic, and it's just a case of what that sustainability qualification is.
Again, and I think as you also said, but Pierre, but you know, sustainability is also people as well, isn't it? It's a social, it's people, it's
totally
going on with the land. And Will, I know humble grape, I guess your demographic is I imagine it's an important aspect of what you do.
It's absolutely key. Every single producer we work with, we have a conversation about sustainability, their ethics, their processes, what they do before we even consider having them on the list. It's pretty much one of the most important aspects of working with a winery is every element of sustainability. And like everyone here has echoed, the word organic is just almost a box to tick commercially. It depends what they're actually doing and other things as well. Whether they're certified organic is not a big deal for us because some people practice organics without wanting to go through the rigmarole and the costs of getting the actual certificate in some places. But there's a million ways to be sustainable, and we always want to tell our producers' story to the public and what they're doing in that, whether it's reducing their carbon footprints in a manner of different ways, using lighter bottles, using solar power, different waste management treatments. There's countless different things you can do, but it's ultimately an exceptionally important thing to us is sustainability in wines, and that translates from the vineyard in the winery and to the people as well in distribution.
Excellent. Okay. Well, let's in the time we've got left, I appreciate we might need to just go on a little bit longer, but if people need to leave, I do understand. But well, if we can just sort of like look at the Raimat portfolio and some of the still and white and red wines. I mean, I guess if the buyers can be tasting the wines and just looking at them, I think this is really just to sort of give an indication of obviously what's happening on the still side of things as well as on the sparkling. Do you, Richard, Russ, Juan, who wants to sort of just give us a very brief overview of what Raimat portfolio is looking to try and do?
I'd certainly leave that to the expert, Juan. You're Mr. Raimat, as we call you.
Yeah. Okay. Just to give you a broad view on Raimat wines, what we try to express in our wines is to translate in some way what is the expression of this soil and this climate, minimizing any input. That's why we try to maximize the fruit, the expression of the fruit. The variety is trying to get the best of its variety without, let's say, minimum oak or minimum other things that can hide in some way that fruit expression. And most of them, or all of them, they have in common that they are very fresh wines, no? Trying to express that fruitness and the origin of the wines coming from Raimat. Other than the certifications, because we have plenty of those, so other than being one of the founders of Wineries for Climate Protection, or we are the ISO 14001, or even we are in the agreements of CO2 reduction with the Catalan government. We have the EcoCert certification, the BioSwiss, the organic, and all those certifications. But what we try to communicate with Raimat wines is the fruitness and the expression of this soil and this climate, which I think it is quite unique.
Okay. Any from the Codorniu guys, any thoughts of where you're trying to position these wines in the UK market?
I think the biggest thing for me, obviously, in on-trade, is sort of resonating sort of the ecological part, and obviously, you know, when I'm going out to sort of sell to sort of on-trade, you know, from Raimat, which is obviously, you know, our biggest sort of wine producer and over sort of 3 hectares of sort of, 3,000 hectares of land. You know, we've got 20 different grape varietals coming out of Raimat, which is unbelievable, from indigenous grape varietals to obviously the more common ones, sort of thing. So to selling that whole portfolio, when I'm talking about the whole of Raventos's, portfolio, not only are we a Cava producer and back from 1551, 18th generation, but you then talk about being a Pamal, you talk about Lagares, you talk about Raimat, and then when you do introduce Raimat, they can't believe how big it is on a sort of a mass producing scale, but obviously also the kind of pillars and the sort of heritage, and also having that many sort of arrows in your ammunition, that you've got 20 different grape varietals to sort of play with from one winery. So it speaks volumes, and obviously having sort of visited with many people and customers over the years, the story itself sells our wine, sort of thing. And obviously, Richard, how you resonate it is probably a little bit different or very similar in the off trade, I guess.
Well, one of the wines that probably could make a special focus is the Albarino of Raimat, which is quite unique probably in Spain and worldwide, because most of the Albariños, they come from Rías Baixas, from Galicia region. And we started planting Albariño 25 years ago. So we have a bit experience already with the Albariño, and we tested 6 different clones, and we selected one after 10 years of testing it and trying to introduce it, because we consider that it's a very good variety, and especially our Albariño doesn't try to be a Rías Baixas Albariño, of course, because it's more close to what could be the inland or the continental side of Galicia, like Monterrey region. I don't know if you are familiar with it, or even Ribera Sacra, which is more continental, and try to express these more mineral aromas or white flowers. Even one of the advantages we have here with the Albariño is that we can leave it to full ripening, because sometimes in those Atlantic zones, because of the weather that it rains too much, they have to pick it a little bit green, and then they have those malolactic levels that they have to do the malolactic fermentation. In our case, is without any malolactic, so trying to express all the acidity in the wine and all the freshness, as I said. All our varietals try to express usually freshness and fruit, and I think that is a quite interesting Albariño to taste, and especially being organic, that there are probably not other or very few organic Albariños because of the weather conditions of Galicia. So I think it's a quite interesting wine that I don't know the perception in UK of Albariño, if it's a known variety or not, but I think that it's can have a very interesting market there.
It's okay. Can I just Richard? I mean, you're in terms of the Spanish indigenous varieties. I mean, with this range, I mean, I guess this is very much up your street in terms of what you're looking for Camino, in terms of the focus on indigenous.
Yeah, I was very interested to try the Albariño, all the wines here. I'd heard that it had been planted in Costa del Segre some time ago, but yeah, thanks, Joanne, for telling me when. So it's obviously got, it's very well established now, the vineyard. I thought the wine was very good, and I'm sort of very interested to compare it with. I haven't just compared it with an Albariño from Rías Baixas, but it's a hugely popular style now in England, not just in Spanish restaurants, but across the board. So it's done really, really well. So I think it's very interesting to have this style with, as you say, in a more continental, a much drier climate than in Rías Baixas. And I thought the wine was tasting very well indeed. I must say, very fragrant. It's got that lovely sort of minerality. I got that sort of white blossom and sort of almost jasmine on the nose, actually. And yeah, I thought it was very well balanced, a really good wine. I'd be interested to know what sort of price point this would sell at, and how it compares with the Albariños from Rías Baixas.
Yeah, I guess price point. So obviously DPD going out to retailers. This would be, Richard, around about the 670, 680 mark. And it's driven me crazy since November last year because of obviously the in vogueness and obviously it's such a trendy, great varietal, as you probably alluded to, not only just in Spanish restaurants, but across all sort of, you know, restaurants, categories, on trade outlets across the UK. In Raimat, and not only in Raimat, but a lot of other suppliers, you know, vintage was completely depleted back in sort of November, December last year. So literally we have just had, obviously, you know, we've just had new vintage in literally within the last 6 or 7 weeks back into the UK. So I've been crying out for it for months, and literally last year it just took the trade by storm. You know, not only in the sort of off trade, which Richard can resonate to, looking after the off trade, you'd get sort of years ago, you'd probably get 2 or 3 Albarinos in Asda or Morrison's or Sainsbury's, whereas nowadays you're getting sort of 6 or 7, and it's resonating into the on trade as well. It's such a trendy, great varietal, and as I said, I was pulling my hair out the missed opportunities, but you know, it's still making a big noise, and everybody was asking when's it back in stock. So it's great now to have it back, sort of thing. But yeah, it's been a huge success, and I think it's going to continue to sort of grow in sort of 2023.
Excellent. Okay. And finally, Charles, I mean, just from your point of view, in terms of still Spanish wines for you, in terms of where you're seeing best sales for Spanish still?
Yeah, it's still growing. Yeah, we've seen quite a good uptake over the last year or two in Spanish wines. Albarinos, I think we've got 8 different Albarinos on our list now. Not all Spanish, has to be said. But yeah, I think there's always room for another one with the way the demand for Albarino is going. And the others, I've not really tasted them properly. I've just tasted them very quickly now, but be interesting to have a look at the other wines there as well. But yeah, you know, there's loads of scope in there for Albarino as far as I'm concerned.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, what I'll do, I think we'll call it a day here now. I think, let's say we did finish. We finished at 11:30. I know a couple of the buyers have had to move on to other things, but yeah, just to say thanks a lot for everyone for their time. Thank you, Juan, for joining us from Spain, and obviously the Codorniu team and Clementine for helping bring it all together. Yeah, well, enjoy. We've all got nice lots of wines opened here now, so we're going to have to taste and share over the coming days. So, which is a nice start to the week. But yeah, so thanks to everybody for taking part, and we really appreciate your time.
Just before finishing, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to Raimat if you have the opportunity to come anytime, because I think that the perception it changed completely when you see it and you touch it versus just explaining it in a computer, which is quite difficult in the wine world to communicate these kind of things. No? So feel free to come to Raimat if you have the opportunity, and it will be a pleasure for us to take you around.
Brilliant. Okay. And any final thoughts from the Codorniu guys?
Just, you know, any support you guys need from myself and Richard, you know, we're here via the sort of direct or swapping, changing, and sort of, giving out sort of, personal details, but everything can come through Clementine as far as we're concerned, or sort of direct, and we're here to sort of help. As I said, Richard's off trade, and I'm sort of living the life of obviously up and down the UK and sort of Ireland in the on trade.
Yeah, we're here to support though, so it's our job to come and obviously visit you, and if it involves more wine samples, we're glad to get on the road, whether it's down to Cornwall, Charles, or wherever it might be. We're more than happy to do that, because to be honest, this has been great today. Thank you very much for your time, but ultimately doing tasting back in person again is the best thing we can possibly do, and it's something that's obviously been missed over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and is that a blue sky behind you there, Charles? Or is that your back?
Yes, no, it is a blue sky, I'm afraid. Yes.
Well,
yeah. It's been nice down here this weekend, so
you win on the sky front, anyway, definitely. Yeah. Okay, guys. So thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.
Bye.
Lovely. Cheers. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.